Yeah, just to say a little bit about the recording of them. Um, they started very much as a response to the coronavirus. And in a way, also a response to George Floyd, the way those things came together. And in different ways, my work had been a bit of turmoil, and the coronavirus added to that, as well as some personnel problems. So a bunch of stuff to come through, and this was in England. People were having a hard time. So I came up with the idea that we had something to offer. We had something to offer in the tools. It's not the therapy part of the work, Stella. That doesn't live in the forum, that lives elsewhere. The chair work. But this is concentrated on the tools. And I had the idea that the tools could give people a lift. If I could come up with a way to, which we have done, really refine the tools down so there's a certain straightforwardness and simplicity to them. And within that, someone could grab it quickly, grab the pendulum or feelings of accomplishment and use it I was thinking at that time particularly of work settings, but not just work settings, just how hard it is, how very hard it is these times. Anyway, that's where they started. My work always involved some sharing, and my first idea was not to record them, and to, so people got more privacy. But then I thought that through, and this was absolutely at the start of COVID. And I thought, and like in America, particularly here in England, there was a lot of recognition of, in America, it'd be first responders. Here, it were people who work for the NHS, the National Health Service. The thing for a while, seems a long time ago now, where people would stand outside their house and bang a saucepan with a spoon on Thursday night at 8 o'clock or Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Happened every week, but one particular time, all over the country. They were those times. And I thought, yes, I do want to put my work out in some way. It could be useful. And if that's the case, those of us who work in my side of the helping professions, psychotherapy and counseling, social work, not so much social work, but certainly psychotherapy, compared with doctors and nurses, we were extraordinarily protected. We weren't in any way under threat. And I thought, well, I think we should take a risk. And okay, if someone's gonna come in on this and hear me talk a little bit about myself, I think, because there's a point of view of mine that the helping professions like counseling, psychotherapy, social work, training, the professionals are often extraordinarily protected. Clients, aren't so much. So I thought, well, this is a risk we can take to record it and make it available to people. So that's just the background to the recording. The work I've been presenting over the last couple of sessions, and then when Mary and Nikki were doing it on Wednesday, is the part of this work that's called Strata. Yeah, and coming in now, Stella, as Mary will have told you, they are recorded, a whole bunch of them. So if you want to, get a flavor of what they've been like.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's easy. Because the group the group of us that are here now, we've been together for some weeks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But even just listen to some of the other ones, get a bit of a feel for it.
Okay.
So coming into this is the most comprehensive part of Pelin work. It is, there's just more stuff here than in any of the other tools. So it's a little bit of a slog to get through the definitions and set it up. And we use the word strata in a very, it's a jargon word. It's a word David Pelin used, and I have wanted to use it. I want to keep his word, but it's just a jargon word. And sometimes when, someone's on a training course who has some background in geology, they'll tell me rather forcefully that it doesn't quite work. But, we do, yeah.
I just wanted to let Stella and other people know that I'm going to put in the chat the ones we already covered. So if she wants to look back at that recording, she can, and where we're going today from evaluation on, right? Again, is that right? Is that what you're doing today?
Yeah, I'm going to go over the others because I have to be honest, I'm cheating because I'm finishing my diagram while I'm talking to you, okay? Because I couldn't get it on my computer. Okay, strata is, we call it 7 strata. And it's 7 areas of life. In a way, given that basic assumption is you only have a tiny bit of the whole truth, I'm printing, that's why my voice goes hesitating. I'll stop trying to do 2 things at once. In a way, strata covers everything. You can sort of fit all of life into it. And another way to see it is that it's a toolbox that all the other tools fit into, okay? And there are 7 of them. Social strata, which is about the world we're born into, our class, sex. We're born into a world where there are a lot of educational opportunities or not. That's the that's strata. Strata is the world we're born into, including the values we're born into. So issues of prejudice, issues of politics, live in social strata. So there's 7 of them going across a page. The second one is a communication strata. Communication strata is how effective we are at getting across what we want to get across, and do we know what we want to get across? So just saying it quickly, if someone's got problems in social strata, that's going to affect their communication strata. If someone's racist or a bigot, that's going to come across in their communication. And all our material about listening and passive listening lives in communication strata. The next one is emotional strata. And emotional strata is the pendulum and memory links. In terms of the tools fitting in, memory links also fits into social strata. You know, it's about how our values are affected by the family we're born into, the community we're born into, the nation we're born into. That's all social strata. Communication strata is communicating and listening. Emotional strata is what are our emotional strengths and weaknesses. Emotional strata is the pendulum and also memory links. And they're the 3 essentially we've looked at today. Let me put the other 4 in so you've got it.
Peter, you mean before today, right? Or are we going to go back over them?
No, what today we're doing is evaluation strata, right?
Yeah.
And the others. I just wanted to.
No, I agree. You just said the wrong word, so I was making sure.
Yeah. The others are, so the 4th one across is evaluation strata. Evaluation strata is, do we make good decisions? Do we set accurate and realistic goals for ourselves? The next one across is called accomplishment strata, and that's about whether we reach the goals we have set for ourselves. The next one across is called perseverance strata. And perseverance strata is about our ability to handle adversity, disappointment, rejection, tough times. And the 7th one is called awareness strata. And awareness strata is how we relate to a higher power. It's about religion, it's about God, it's about perhaps our higher power is history or nature or physics. So.
Could you say that word again? Could you say that word again?
Awareness.
Awareness?
Yeah.
That's the 7th? Okay.
Yeah. I had to Tipex something. So it's not quite complete, but that's the diagram. Okay.
Peter, you're holding it a bit close, so either scroll it along or hold it a bit, and not that we can read it that easily. Yeah. So it's the words in the order I typed up with evaluation as yellow because it's the center, right?
Yeah. Well, evaluation, because I couldn't find the right pen. So.
Well, it looks good in the center anyway.
Yeah.
It's hard to read. Yeah.
That's what the
Excuse me, Peter.
diagram
Elizabeth,
looks like.
the names of the strata are in the chat. It is hard to read, but the names of what we're talking
I
about
wonder
are in
if
the
it
chat.
would work this way. If I
That way.
sort of hold it in close and then move it across.
Correct.
Anyway, social communication, emotional evaluation. Does that help, Mary, or not?
Yeah, that helps for the ones we've covered. Yeah, and as I was trying to say, it's the names are in the chat. I mean, we don't hold it up the other way, Elizabeth, because it isn't hierarchical. So it just is one of those problems like reading the names of books on spines. You know, just it's in that territory.
Yeah,
You know, oh, sorry, just a practical
no,
thing.
go on.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But if you take a picture of it and get it to me, I can sort of put it up so that I can put it in a little link so people can link onto it from the recording.
That would be great. I will do that. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, that's great. So up to where I am at the moment with this is wanting to define each term, and that's why I repeat it and go over it again, because I just want to define each term clearly at this stage, and adding another bit to it, and just not necessarily worrying about the names, but I'll hold it close so people might be able to get a bit of it. Sorry about this, guys. Bit primitive in this day and age.
It's okay. We'll get there in the end, don't worry.
Yeah. And we talk about
strata.
Yes. And we talk, and just bringing that into this, yeah, you know, my weakness is accomplishment strata. You know, sort of always has been, almost always will be. And this is, you know, I have a really good idea. That's evaluation strata. You know, have a diagram for today, and then, you know, that's the goal. But accomplishment strata is whether or not I reach the goal. So yeah, I did. So that's, we talk about high and low strata. So high strata is at the top of each of these. So that high strata is when we're doing well. And high strata is characterized by purpose and nourishing contributions. Then low strata, which is down here, is characterized by hurt and narrowness. So in high strata, we were making nourishing contributions. In low strata, we are being hurtful. It's simple. Mary.
I just want to say that every time I hear it, which I don't mind how many times I hear this. I just think it makes me almost want to cry. It's such an incredible tool, but by the time you have high and low strata, as well as covering all possible areas of life, it's just like a gem. You just have a wonderful tool that, as far as I know from my study in the official field of psychotherapy, just really doesn't exist anywhere else. I know we say we've only got a little bit of the truth, but it's such an amazing analytical tool.
Yes, it is. And the other, and as I have said before here at other times, it was like a throwaway. It was in Victor, who comes to these
It's just
forums.
here now.
Oh,
It's
I just told you. Yeah, Victor will know that this was a throwaway. This was like 20, just chucked in 20 minutes of a hour-long lecture.
We're talking about strata again, Vic.
I'm talking about strata. Put it another way, David threw it out, but he didn't develop it. But the basis of it is absolutely all his. I've just done stuff with it. And there's something which we will get into. There's something about the strata material as a tool using it in a therapeutic situation. You can't use the strata material without finding somebody's strengths. You just can't. If you can't, well, someone is in such a place, as we've all been at times, that, you know, teaching the tools is irrelevant. You just need to be there for somebody. You know, the relationship is everything at some time when someone's having a terrible time. But if someone's in a slightly stronger place, there's you can't use this tool without finding the strengths. You just can't. You say, okay, well, I just said it. My accomplishment strata is really low. Okay, but in terms of what Mary opened this with, which was her finding the Gestalt therapy demonstration project in corrections, which I did for the Department of Corrections, province of British Columbia in 1969. There's something about perseverance strata that even organizationally we've kept going. We didn't have a copy of that foundation document, and now we got one. That perseverance strata, and it also comes in on social strata for me, because I could relate to those guys who were serving time in prison. I could get them to do Gestalt work. After quite a long struggle, because putting in some of this background, Carl Rogers in group therapy, my first training was in psychodynamic stuff. It was all in what was then called in-house training. And then Carl Rogers' work came in and group therapy came in. And, I was a counselor in this Haney Correctional Institution, it was called. And so we were going to do group therapy with them. And I got on well with my guys, but I don't know what it was, but they decided they were not going to do it. So they pulled a freeze. No one would say anything, okay? I would sit there and try and do something. No one would say anything, okay? A couple of them said to me, Peter, it doesn't matter what you do, we're not going to do that. So I did another one. I can't remember. Maybe I tried 3. And I knew at that time, okay, I'm really good at individual. I am not going to do group work ever again in my life. Okay. And I didn't for years. But there was I had the communications, I had the social strata to be able to relate to them. So they didn't see me as a, Ponzi kid who was full of himself, as they saw some of my colleagues I knew. And I remember her name was Mrs. Perkins. I guess she was the first person I really studied under. And she was called Ma Perkins. She was a counselor and she'd been there for a long time. She would have been in her 60s. And yeah, I learned a lot from her. So that's sort of a combination of social strata and communication strata. Where we're going today is filling in evaluation strata, accomplishment strata, perseverance strata, and awareness strata. So if you'll bear with me while I just get those across. As I've said, evaluation strata is how well do we make decisions? How well do we set goals? How well do we make assessments? Are we accurate? Do we pick the right vacations? Do we pick the right partners? Do we pick the right schools for our kids? Do we assess situations accurately in our workplace? Evaluation strata can be summarized. It is goal setting. And in evaluation strata, and again, seeing the strata as a toolbox, in evaluation strata is the capacity to be accurate. And that we say that half of it's ourselves and half of it is using advisors. So the whole Pelham concept of advisors lives in evaluation strata. And our evaluation strata will be doubled if we're using advisors well. Low evaluation strata is, people who just make the wrong moves all the time, who don't make good decisions, because that can hold people back in a home, hold people back in a marriage, hold people back at work. And low evaluation strata is at times also the narrowness of not trying. Well, there's no point in setting goals because I'll fail. I always do. That's, some of that is low evaluation strata. Mary.
Well, I just had a question, because when you said that last thing, it sounded a bit as though it maybe also belonged in perseverance strata, does it?
Well, yeah, that's where you get the links between the strata, and that's the fun part of this work, okay? Because you're quite right there. Because the classic part of low evaluation strata is learning from experience. It's learning common sense, and I define common sense to have it be accepted. I define common sense as the unconscious accumulation of human intuitive wisdom over time.
So, Peter, just to be
Could-
clear, you said low evaluation strata and common sense. Is that what you mean?
Low evaluation strata is denying common
Right.
sense. Low evaluation strata, and also low evaluation strata is dividing common sense in other people. I mean, you can, in the field I've worked in over recent years, fostering, you professionals often see foster carers as not having good goal setting skills, when in fact they do have good goal setting skills. They're just using different language. So the ability to make good judgments is evaluation strata. And making good judgment has a lot, whether it's teenagers picking a boyfriend or nations going to war, good judgment has a very large part to play. And the good judgment part of it that almost doesn't come from a formal training in evaluation strata, but comes from that feel for situations that you get in both love and war. You know, this doesn't feel right for me, or there's something here that feels wrong. That can be about a relationship, or it can be about a battlefield. Same thing. So evaluate, and as I've said before, evaluation strata is, in a way, the bottom line of Pelham work. There's even our therapeutic work, it falls into evaluation strata. You know, because one of the, it's not part of the forum, but a part of the Pelham therapeutic work is deep self-knowledge. And that deep self-knowledge, particularly if we're using advisors, particularly if we're able to passive listen to hard feedback, you know, that deep knowledge can give us a really high, can move our evaluation strata up. And advisors is a very particular tool in Pelham. It is, they define very clearly, an advisor is someone I choose, someone who I can listen to, someone who has some expertise in the field, but also someone who will not try and control me. And advisors doubles our evaluation strata. And you can see it. The tragedy that comes into people who, wherever they're placed, but who have enormous political skills, which lie in social strata and communication strata and accomplishment strata. But people who often have very high political skills don't use advisors when they need to, because our material around advisors is very clear. The more important something is, the more responsibility we carry, the more hurt that's around, the more advisors we need. So if we're, and there are two myths around that. One is the myth of privacy. You know, keep it in the family, don't let it get outside the family, even though we're disintegrating. So someone won't use an advisor if their marriage or their business is going bust, but they'll use an advisor if they're looking at to change their mortgage or looking about where to go on a vacation. And we're quite insistent on facing those two myths. And the loneliness of office myth is, you know, it's all on me. I've got this high-powered position and I'm alone with it. No, you're not alone with it. Because you've got the high-powered position, you can call on anyone, anywhere. And you could passive listen to them. So one of the things we're saying within Evaluation Strata, and this relates to passive listening, which is in Communication Strata, and that is we're saying that we can teach people intuition. We can improve people's intuition. And some of that is the way we approach Evaluation Strata. And as I said previously, Evaluation Strata is setting the goals.
Peter, can you just explain, I didn't get that at all, how improving intuition is related to Evaluation Strata. Is it, can you explain it?
As it is with this material, and as it is with Evaluation Strata, and in a sense with all appellant tools, there's a whole lot of depth and complexity and subtlety in them, as well as the, you know, initial graspable Pell and Lich, you know, quick study. So a deep study Evaluation Strata does put us into looking at judgment, looking at common sense, and looking at those two things in a different way, because we're also looking at how our unconscious is behind judgment. And in Pelham, we make judgment. We don't, in a lot of psychotherapy, you're not allowed to use judgments. We make judgment, but we say they are judgments. And that, because the real training for intuition that we've got in Pelham is passive listening. Yeah, it just is. I guess I would say, if you practice a lot of passive listening, your intuition will blossom. And I guess people who are into, you know, that's my work and my world. People, and some of you here are more than me, some of who are really deeply into meditation would say, if you meditate a lot, you'll be wiser. You know, so it's just the same if I start going to the gym and running in the park 2 or 3 times a week, I'm going to be fitter. So we're looking at intuition in this sense because of passive listening, because of our link to common sense and our link to ordinary judgment. You know, those are things you can practice. You can certainly practice passive listening.
Can I just say,
yeah.
What came to mind when you were talking was the difference between when therapists, or anybody, but I was thinking of therapists, I've heard this said in Pell in Italy, you know, oh, I listen, but I'm thinking of what I'm going to say. This is the first time I've really listened. And I'm thinking of that when you really take in the words somebody uses about themselves, their words, not what you think they've said, then I can't put it into words, the link between that and intuition, but it just feels like there's a knowing the person or beginning to know the person more when you're really hearing and remembering their words that would give like a better pool or container for intuition to flourish in. Is that?
Oh, no, absolutely. And that is, because I should have said it more clearly, passive listening and the 7 levels of listening live in communication strata. You know, that's the part of the toolbox they live. And if you get into the 7 levels of listening, and if you really practice with them, you are taking out, and you are taking out in passive listening, you are taking out your own values, your own beliefs, your emotional history, your emotional reaction to things, your view on whether you like this person or not, and your analysis or diagnosis of the situation, which is the 7th level of listening. Now, in our 7 levels of listening, we don't in any way say that the 7th level evaluation, or could be called diagnosis, is not important. We're just saying we can slow down. This was the start of my work. When I was good at diagnosis, and that's in the document Mary found. And I realized that being good at diagnosis ended up being a detriment because I go into my diagnosis and I'm good at it. You know, so that's feeding my ego, okay? I got my ego fed. Wow, you know, you're so accurate. And that was from, you know, senior prison guards. And it's not letting someone in the same way. So what you got your diagnosis, but you haven't got the part of common sense, the part of human integrity, which is when we are just there for somebody. And that, to put it in, you know, a historical perspective, that also goes back to Carl Rogers, you know, it's more important to be there as a person, not as a role. So the title comes second to just being there as a person. And that, if you combine that value with passive listening, you're opened up. And you're opened up not, and this is the caring life force in our work, to just be there, like it's a parallel to what in theories of creativity is called the creative void. The creativity comes out of nothingness. If you try to be busy all the time, you won't find it. Hence, someone like me has some trouble with my own creativity because I won't let myself have the void. This we will be going over, okay? So I don't have, has anyone got any questions? Because I don't have the right thing up to see.
Elizabeth and Cease have questions. I didn't see whose hand went up first.
So you go first.
Yeah.
Peter, I think it would be helpful if you had like a case study or something as you explain this, because I'm getting bogged down in the different terminology. But if you could talk about a person that you worked with and how you use these different things to come up with maybe some kind of treatment plan, or what, you know, where you were going to go with this person, or you're at some point where you have to make some decisions. If you could put.
Yeah, you know,
information together
Yeah.
as an example, I think it would be helpful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question, and I will. Yeah, right.
Peter, can I just say, I'm aware that I was a bit maybe not thinking of everybody in the group. I'm so interested in the Pelling tools about improving intuition that maybe I led us a bit on a tangent. And I'm just aware that you've done evaluation strata, and it's such complex material. If we only cover evaluation today, it's probably fine. But I'm just fessing up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as someone who has no tendency at all to go off in tangents, okay. Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just sort of picking someone.
Should we let Elizabeth have her question just so we've kind of got an idea of what we're trying to fit in?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. I just wanted to go back to the point that you said a few moments ago about that you gave yourself as an example, Peter, of that you had accomplished the skill of diagnosis very early in your career. And that early on, you thought to yourself, oh, wow, I'm good at this, right? And that's what you just said. And then you said, that was not always the most helpful approach when you were going in, that you needed to have a more neutral frame of mind when going in, or more of a blank slate to be able to hear what the other person was saying, and to slow it down. You use that phrase. And what I was thinking about was there's some intersection here between building confidence that what you are good at will be helpful and will result in a contribution to another person, and kind of blowing your own horn. There's some line between those two things. If you didn't feel, Peter, that you were able to work effectively with people, that insecurity would get in the way of you being able to do a good diagnosis. So there's that baseline there of quiet confidence, and then also motivated by wanting to make a contribution to the other person. So I don't know how anyway, what I wanted to interrupt was you classifying your capacity to really do good diagnosis early on in your career and to continue and to build on that as something that should be put off into an egotistic point of view, because I don't think that's all there is there at all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Coming back to Caesar's point, and sort of, I guess, staying here today with evaluation and accomplishment strata. And I think the 7 levels of listening are very comprehensive and quite demanding. And that's the reason I have a training video on the website. So someone can, go in there and get the 7 levels of listening. Because it takes a bunch of time to teach it. I think this is somewhat similar, and there happen to be 7. I think I need a training video for it, so people can get it that way. It is in the manual, and I think, wow, I think written up quite well. Because right in the very early days of Pelling, someone arrived who I'd not met before and said, arrived in a taxi at the place that we first had there, and said, and this person was from America, and said, I've come here to help you write. And the first thing this person got me to do literally was Strata.
Right.
And that person was called Betsy Wetzel.
No.
Okay. That person had a different name now. But that
You got me back, Peter. You got me back.
That person was Elizabeth, okay? So the Strata material is written up fairly well in the manual. Coming back to, it's a comprehensive, set of tools on, I'm sort of jamming it into the forum in a way, but I think we can make it work, particularly if I get the diagram photographed and sent to Cynthia. Yeah, okay, client.
Peter, just before you do that, just to let you know, you may not know this, and anyone who hasn't seen the newsletter, that while we're discussing Strata, I have put the link to the manual and the page numbers that Strata is on in each newsletter.
Great, thank you for that. Yes, this part of the material is hard work. It's not as easy to grab as the pendulum or feelings of accomplishment or purpose. It's very ambitious, covering everything. In terms of clients, it's using a client. I'll call him Bill, who's doing a PhD, but in a foreign country on his own, and coming up to, like, the defense of the PhD is Thursday, and he's in China. He's in a university town in China doing his PhD in international relations and politics. At this point, he really needs to sort of hone down on something very tight between evaluation strata and accomplishment strata, okay? His accomplishment strata is very good, but he's something of a perfectionist. Got social strata is great. He's in China. He's been there 4 or 5 years. An Englishman. Communication strata. Now that's complicated. Because he's doing his PhD in English, but the people on the panel where he has to defend his PhD, their English is quite limited. Emotional strata at the moment would just do him in. He needs to be very, not enthusiastic. He needs to be rather tight on the pendulum. And evaluation strata, when to let go of it. Okay, I've done it. I've done it as well as I could, get it in, rather than I'll hold on to it for another week or two. And he's struggling. And so that's really using evaluation strata and linking it to accomplishment strata. And, he is on his own. And he's 12 years younger than me, not a young man. Doing well there, loves China, just loves it. Learned some of the language. So the perseverance strata is really high, okay? Perseverance strata is how good we are at adversity, loss, rejection, failure. In another application of this work, completely different one, how good we are at, which I touched on a week ago, how good we are at putting up with an abusive relationship. Let me just leave that there for a moment and stay with Bill before I go into this. Yeah, so it really sort of comes down, okay, there's all that stuff around, but right now it's sort of short-term evaluation, short-term accomplishment. It's got to be formatted, printed, and that's all got to be done at the office where they don't speak, and with the printer where they don't speak very much English. Okay, so it's sort of really evaluation, just at that moment. Because one of the things, and I'll just say this in passing today, but I will be getting back to it. If you remember, one of the fundamental assumptions of this work is that around any positive, there's a code of negative, and around any negative, there's a code of positive. So high strata's got all sorts of positive stuff in it, purpose and nourishing contributions, but it has a code of negative. And that's where I, put in that example. If I could use this, if it's really tough for Bill, he'll persevere, he'll do it, doesn't matter how hard it gets. But high perseverance strata, the code of negative around, high perseverance strata is courage, hope in the face of fear. But it's also being able to put up with that which we should not put up with. So there's these are some of the complexities in this comprehensive material. So the application, and over the next 2 or 3 sessions, I want to develop what I call strata analysis, because you can simply come in with this material. And again, as I said previously about other tools, the pendulum, the life forces, 2 that we've spent a lot of time on here, there's real precision in this material. And there's a real precision in the strata material. It's not, and as I said previously, it's a hand, a forearm, a shoulder, and a forehead. They're different parts of us. And they're quite, and what I'm saying about this material, they have relationships, as my shoulder has a relationship to my hand, through my arm. They're still really different things.
Peter, can I jump in for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to relate back to what Elizabeth and Cease were saying, because it brought and what you just said about precision, it brought me back to something I experienced about 35 years ago, and really seemed to connect with what both Elizabeth and Cease were saying. About 35 years ago, I was in a difficult spot, which seems to be the proverbial story of my life. It seems ridiculous to say that now, but anyways, it was a very difficult spot, and I had arranged to meet with a counselor, a psychologist, through my church at that time, and this person had, credentials and was a significant person, trained in everything, and I remember going that night and feeling, gee, I really need this. I'm really hoping something good's going to happen. And we sat down and we started talking, and I could sort of sense that this person had a, what do you call it, paradigm or a school of thought, which seemed to be coming through a bit. But at some point, I said to him that I was particularly interested in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that I said a little bit about that. And right away, I noticed that this person was taken aback, that I could see it, that they were taken aback, that I knew something about some other psychology, right? And I could see it on their face, and I could see it in the way they backed up and everything. And at that moment, and Elizabeth said something about slowing the experience down. And at that moment, that hurt me. And I didn't recover from that in the sense of getting value out of this particular counseling relationship, because I could see without any doubt at all, this person was threatened by the fact that I had some knowledge. You know, and I was shocked at that. I was really shocked. And so that experience, that counseling experience did not work out for me. And so I give that experience relating to what you said and what's been said here, because this is, to me, what is important is this: if that person could have come outside of their training, their whatever it was, and even for a couple of minutes, walked in my shoes, even for a couple of minutes. And this is what I come back to what Elizabeth said, slow it down. If they had been able for a couple of minutes at that moment, I would have had buy-in. I would have been listening. I would have been okay. And then, and this is what I think Elizabeth said in particular is important, then their expertise could have come in creative ways, and it would have been productive. And what Elizabeth talked about, this balance between, you know, we have our training and expertise, and we hope it's going to be good for someone, and that shouldn't be chucked out. And one of the things I sometimes believe that has happened, especially, and I go way back, and I go back to David and Peter, you know, and the decades of everything that's happened, is that some approaches seem to take the position that I have to be blank as a counselor, as a helper. I'm blank, and that, I'm sorry, I got to be really plain here. That's garbage. You've either developed something. The question is, how are you going to use it? And can you step outside it enough to listen to the other person so that they know? I needed that night to be heard. I needed to be heard. And I knew this person couldn't hear me. And I thought, wow, with all your training, I don't give a stuff about your training. You can't hear me. And how much hearing would have been needed? Maybe only a couple of minutes. And then we would have been on a different track. And I have no bitterness about this or anything, but it was a startling sort of experience for me. And I relate it to what Elizabeth and Cece were saying, you know, and this again was Strata, and you talked about position. If you slow down enough to be able to relate and so that, you know, true empathy of the person, and then maybe some new ideas are going to come in. So I hope that helps a little bit. It's a little bit like you asked for a case study. There, you can use me.
Okay. Yeah, bring that into Strata. It is, and this is where it sort of comes in quite strongly, okay? I'd almost, and it's a tool, you know, people can use it a whole lot of different ways. And in any situation, you know, it's useful to use it more than one time. But I think there is something in social strata there. You know, I've got my profession, I've got my school of thought. And it's a difficulty in our field where there's competition between different schools of thought. You know, so what we're saying, we've just got out a little bit, and So it's the social strata, you know, can I relate to this person who's different than me, okay? And can I communicate that? So there's something in that situation that's almost social strata and communication strata. You know, I've got my particular school of thought and practice, and I'll communicate that to you. And then I'll get, well, say, going back to a client, yeah, sort of, you know, my approach is different. You know, a client might have had other experience with other therapists. And I say over and over again, what we do at our best, and we're not always at our best, we add to what people already have. We're not coming in and say our approach is right and your approach is wrong. We're coming at a different place from that. And just to, I guess, pay homage, I think that's the word I want to use. And I know the time's rushed by, so yeah, David's idea was any of us only got a tiny part of the whole truth. That blew me away. Until I heard him say that, I wasn't that impressed because I was young and arrogant and bushy-tailed. And I felt that when he said that, I felt this is more sophisticated than anything I've heard methodologically. So given that it's not 7 o'clock as I thought it was, I guess, you know, what we'll be doing is just continuing with this. But I will photograph the diagram and get it, because the thing, I think we can take case histories and put them on this and, you know, see it, how it works out. And, you know, the example I was giving of Bill, my client Bill, and saying, you know, okay, at the moment it's evaluation and accomplishment strata, but it's evaluation, you know, even to the point of, you know, get a good night's sleep. You know, don't let the thing keep you up if you've got to make an oral defense next morning. So almost in terms of evaluation strata, the most important thing is a good night's sleep. That's almost sort of one use of it. But when you're using it that way, you're also coming in with the strength. Okay, you know, he's got the social strata. They like him there. Yeah, he's got the communication strata. He's worked for 20 years on his pendulum. Yeah, so you can just narrow down. And that's where what I call precision we've got here. Ooh. So we have to stop. But I'll be continuing this on Wednesday. And let us see if we can bring in the concrete examples, the case history examples. And, you know, just to sort of sum it up a little bit, Strata is a toolbox. So what tool am I going to pull out for Bill? And for those of you who know the work, you know, one of the tools of true rest. And true rest often lies in what we call awareness strata. And I guess there's no better Pelham tool almost in terms of preparing for oral defense of work you've done for 4 or 5 years in a foreign country, and getting some true rest. Okay, so we'll just go around and finishing up. I'm Peter, and I'm in King's Lynn in Norfolk in England. Mary?
I'm Mary in Rosarito Beach, Baja, California, Mexico.
Okay. Elizabeth Rosenberg?
I'm Elizabeth. I'm in Eugene, Oregon. This is so messy and I'm so uncomfortable, but I have faith that if I stick with it, it's all going to make sense soon.
Yeah, this one's a bit like that, Elizabeth. That's the absolutely right point of view and question. It is a bit messy, and to be frank, it would have been less messy if everyone had a copy of the diagram a week ago. Yeah, but it will come together. Tamara?
I'm Tamara in San Francisco, California.
Okay, Stella?
If you can see me, because my computer just freaked out.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, I'm Stella, and I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay. Cease?
Cease in Tampa, Florida.
Nikki?
I'm Nikki in Wimbledon, London.
Elizabeth?
I'm Elizabeth, and I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I live down the street from Stella.
Okay. Vic?
I'm Vic in Abbotsford, British Columbia. Thank you for everything that's been said.
Yeah. Okay, we'll finish there.
You missed me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Cynthia.
It's okay. I'm Cynthia. I'm in Kankakee, Illinois, and I really wanted to say something that this material is so wonderful, and I really think that this is something, because I knew there was something that really made Pelham very different, and I think particularly the material on evaluation strata. I mean, everything I've ever heard, any theory. I mean, I'm not in the field, but I've been around the field. Everything, it's always very set and go, but like this whole sophistication of, you use some things this time, this is not a good time to use it, and just this whole delicate precision is just, I like it. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you. I guess in finishing up, and yeah, thank you all for coming. And listening to me take some time, because the internet gods. Mary found my first piece of work well before I'd set up the Pelham Institute on the internet. So that made me a bit digressive today. But this will come together, okay? This really will come together. And I guess I wanted to sort of partly I wanted to put it out in a slightly discursive way to give you a sort of feel for it.
Can I just say, Peter, I think the coat of positive around that is that we say to people over and over again, the best way to approach this material is to hear it several times. And with the ones that are easy to grasp, people have a sort of, oh, I've got that one. And they don't realize how much depth there is and how much more there is to grasp. So I think can I just finish just to say to Elizabeth, sure. I think the fact that it's a bit muddly at the moment is just proof of that, Elizabeth, that over time, this is the whole framework. This is what other people would call I don't know the technical term, but like an overarching theory. But it's not, because we're a therapy that's about tools. So it's the whole framework. So if you thought you'd got it in the couple of sessions we've had, well, you wouldn't have done. right? You know what I mean? It's not one of those grasping ones. So it really doesn't matter if it's a bit swimming around at the moment. The whole method is here, here again, here again, here again, here again, read again, and talk about it. And that's how it gets in your blood. It's so similar to 12-step programs. They don't get in your blood if you go to 3 meetings. So they get in your blood when you use the tools. So it isn't a problem. It just can be uncomfortable.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, well, I'll see you on Wednesday. Watch this space. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey. So did you enjoy your, oh, she's gone. I was going to ask Stella if she enjoyed her first session, but.
Oh, I better turn this off.